You're watching a clip from the Football Ramble podcast. For the full episode, search Football Ramble wherever you get your podcasts. New episodes out Monday to Friday. For now, enjoy this video. England under-21s bloody did it. Won the Euros under-21s.
We are the envy of the age group football world.
We really are.
I think we are. It is interesting. I mean, a lot of people have been comparing them to, say, the last time England reached the final of this competition. There's a few names that people would know from that squad. Joe Hart was in there, didn't play in the final, but he was a part of it. Theo Walcott, James Milner, they're perhaps the biggest ones. And that team didn't really kind of kick on comparing to the German side that hammered them in the final 4-0. A lot of those players were playing in the World Cup a year after.
So the German side featured, in that final featured Neuer, Havertz, Boateng, Hummels, Khedira, Ozil and Schmelzer.
I mean,
that's incredible.
It really is incredible. And obviously that generation of German talent was quite something and would win the World Cup. Not long after, of course, just 5 years after that World Cup, after that Euros under-21s, they were world champions, for crying out loud. So I'm just saying we've not got long. No, but you know, and sometimes you can look at these sides and so on, and you can find what you're sort of looking for, if you see what I mean. How much do we read into it? But I do think this feels slightly different with this England under-21 side, because last year, England won the under-19s Euros in 2017, which is not that long ago. They won the under-17s and under-20s age cap World Cups, so it's been pretty decent last
and consistent as well.
Yeah, it has, and this is what the FA were building towards when they built St George's Park. They talked about the England DNA and all this kind of stuff. But I would perhaps argue that this side, this England under-21 side, and Southgate's played his part in it as well to a degree. Obviously, his attention has been the senior side.
No, but he has been important.
Yeah, and he was manager of the under-21s previously.
Exactly.
But this idea of sort of the England DNA was to basically try and change what that was, because for years, you remember the FA School of Excellence, which produced some massive players in terms of England. I'm pretty sure the likes of Rio Ferdinand, Joe Cole, Gerrard, like basically that golden generation, a lot of them went there. And I know they don't have the School of Excellence anymore. But their style of football, despite their individual quality, and they were phenomenal players, don't get me wrong, won a lot of trophies, blah, blah, blah. But there was still that sort of blood, guts and thunder style of English mentality, which was that's first and foremost what you do. Whereas, of course, we've seen, and Spain and Germany are perhaps the two best examples, Spain in particular, where you can change that. Yeah. You can change it around. England are the great underachievers of international football. Spain, for a while, you could maybe mention them in the same bracket.
People used to mention them all the time.
Yeah, that was what they were known for, wasn't it?
Yeah, fair to say they put that to bed.
They have
with those three successive tournament
to the
wins.
point where they've not really done anything in quite some time, and everyone's like, well, that was so good, though.
Yeah, it's like one of those albums you can live off it for 15 years.
Yeah, very much so.
Whereas England...
That is definitely maybe What's the Story, Morning Glory, and the Beast
master plan.
Has
to be,
yeah. But with England, England are the great underachievers. You think about the size of the population, the resources that England have.
Yeah.
Look at St George's Park.
The popularity of football, the strength of the domestic league.
Yeah, the history, the blah, 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 blah. Absolutely right. And if you look at what has happened in the last sort of handful of years, there has been big wins at age cap level. The Lionesses have won the Euros. Really, all that's missing is the senior side winning that trophy.
How much credit? Because I've seen the FA hoovering up quite a lot of credit in the 18 hours or whatever it is since this England under-21 side won.
Yeah.
But how much of it is actually down to them? Because I think they do deserve,
in part,
a bit of credit.
Yeah.
And they deserve a bit more credit than they usually get for everything else they fuck up.
Yes.
But when you were mentioning players there back in the day, and when you mentioned it when we talk about players now, to me, the overwhelming responsibility for those players' development is the clubs. Yeah. I mean, Tony Carr at West Ham's a legend for bringing those kind of players through. How much time are they realistically spending, particularly these players here, the kids, Palmer and Harwood Bellis and one or two others, for example, who are at Man City. Yeah. How much are they benefiting from Man City? They're benefiting a lot more from the academy system at Manchester City than they are at the FA.
They are, but so take your man there at West Ham. So he produced a player like Joe Cole. Joe Cole was a brilliant player, but he was often said to be...
So the finishing school at the FA was wrong, and it wasn't good, and now it's better.
Yeah, but you don't
it's
have...
like a finishing school, though, isn't it?
It is sort of, yeah. Again, like that FA School of Excellence is a bit different. We don't have like a Clairefontaine here. But what they do try and do is get the players at St George's Park. Everyone is in the same... And it's a beautiful place, and they've done a great job with it. Everyone's here, right? This is where we teach you as I say, that sort of DNA, but not just that, the importance, the value of it. I go back to the Kiwi chap who you
Owen
interviewed.
Eastwood, yes.
Yeah, indeed, yeah, and all that sort of vibe about England. You look at the players in this side, the scenes of celebration, the way that they took. I mean, the captain of the side, Taylor Harwood-Bellis, said, we've been talking about the 1984 final a lot, and we felt it was our time to do it. Why on earth are these young lads talking about a final that happened in 1984? Well, I don't even remember.
Because they're being educated in this tradition,
exactly.
right?
This is the culture that Southgate has instilled, isn't he? And that again, a lot of that comes from Owen Eastwood's kind of philosophy as well. This idea of leaving the shirt in a better place than you found it, and that this time right now is the moment in which the light shines on you in this long line of players.
Totally.
All of the England players knew. Which number England player they were going into various tournaments. They know that now. They really, really think about this culture. And the fact that it's joined up like this is really good. I think I agree with your point about the academies at clubs, Luke. But I think you could also say that about La Masia with that Spain squad that we were talking about before, with the Barcelona and Real Madrid academies. And I think that is just a
Pep Guardiola is an
But
individual.
But they have to work hand in glove. They have to.
But I sense that they are doing that now in a way that they perhaps weren't before.
That may well be the case, and I'm not saying it isn't the case. And I'm not looking to undercut the achievement that this age group of players did at the weekend. What I'm saying is, ultimately, we won't know, we won't be able to assess it unless it does or it doesn't graduate eventually to senior group level. And it never has in the past.
Actually,
and we're going back quite a long time.
Southgate himself did say recently he was a little concerned about how the squad's really good now, but they worry they're lacking a little bit in what's coming up behind that. And I mean, this is an emphatic response to that.
And Southgate's, sorry, Marcus, Southgate's always been quite good at promoting players from that as well. And I think I would also just say, a slightly adjacent point, but I think a relevant one, is the academy system. You've got a lot to credit it. Obviously, these clubs at the top of the Premier League are amazing at developing players. Clearly, the two kind of critical elements of it. One is that the players become kind of like hothouse flowers in a way, and they don't really have the exposure a lot of the time to tough, competitive, high stakes kind of professional football, because they're always kind of coddled in the academy system. And the second thing is that, when they go through the academy, and they're obviously really talented players that are full of potential, there's occasionally a barrier to them actually getting first team football. So for every Phil Foden, which people were crying out for, he should be playing more and more for Man City, now of course is a key part of the squad, and he's eventually got there's probably about 7 or 8 of those who aren't quite as good, who never get to that level.
Well, we'll see with Palmer, see what he does.
Quite. And so I remember someone saying, it might have been in that Michael Calvin book, who talks about young players in one of his books, I forget which one it is now. The guy who's running things at Liverpool or something says, they use Raheem Sterling as an example, who of course came through at QPR and West London and goes up to Liverpool. They said that you don't have to worry about a Raheem Sterling. He's always going to do something because he's so good. It's the players that maybe are slightly worse that are good enough to play professional football. Are they being stymied? Are they being blocked from playing somewhere? Because his academy system can have pros and cons to it. So you see a player like Taylor Harwood-Bellis, really highly rated, captain of the U21s, clearly a leader, amazing tournament, etc., etc. Where's he going to go? And if the answer is never to Man City's first team because they're just going to keep signing centre backs, then what do we do with that?
Well, indeed, but I think now, slightly ironically, with England, certainly at government level and parts becoming a more narrow-minded little England nation. Actually, that's not all the case with the country and people in this country, because you now see young footballers with broader horizons and saying, well, I might go to, in particular, the Bundesliga, which you didn't get that long, a few years ago.
True.
And I think that England, and what England's aim is here at international level is to be a bit like France. What France have done. French players, they play all over the place, partly because Ligue 1 is not as big and it doesn't have as much money as the Premier League. But they produce players at that, at a ridiculous level. I mean, it is like they've got a factory of young footballing talent. It is incredible.
Well, that is essentially what Clairefontaine is supposed to be, though,
sure.
isn't it? And, in terms of St George's
yes.
Park.
And in our lifetime, they've been to 4 World Cup finals. Obviously, going back to 98. But you look at France, they're always the favourites now in tournaments. They have, they're one of the biggest and best international nations who produce players at an extraordinary level, an extraordinary rate. England have got the tools to be like that. I remember Gerard Houllier sort of saying this in an interview once when he was showing somebody around Clairefontaine and so on, and he's been a big part of the development of French football in recent years. And he sort of said, "Oh yeah, well England could do this. Like this is achievable for England. It would take an awful lot. It would take everyone moving in the same direction, a lot of money, blah 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 blah." And then he sort of winked and smiled, and went, "Yeah, but they probably won't though."
Yeah.
Well, this gives me a tiny bit of hope.
Thanks for watching a clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a video. And if you're feeling extra generous, why don't you like this video? Why don't you like this video?